everyone, and welcome to A Fistful of Dice. My name is Matt, and I'm joined today by my lovely fiancée, Tila, and we are going to be playing our first actual session of our one-on-one Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition campaign entitled Iron Lords of Zhekesh. If you haven't watched our Session 0 videos, they're not essential viewing, but if you want a look at how we came up with this campaign and collaborated on it, I definitely recommend it. There's a link down in the description to all the playlist of the videos of Iron Lords of Zhekesh. Before we get started, though, I want to just briefly introduce the general idea of the campaign for those who haven't watched Session 0, and also some of the kind of house rule-y stuff that we're going to be doing. So the campaign is going to entail Tila's character, who is an Eladrin monk by the name of Thich, whose full name is Thich of Tien, because she's from the Eladrin city of Tien, returning home after more than a century in self-imposed exile. She had a philosophical disagreement with her people and decided to leave, and has been gone for some time. However, as we'll learn in these opening sessions, she, in her exile, received a vision of grim portent about her people, and has decided to return home from her exile to see what's going on. The island of Zhekesh is a large island. It's like an Australia-sized island. It's really more of a continent, really. And it's sort of teeming with strange creatures who are all tied with a certain element. So there's going to be kind of an elemental sort of theme to this campaign, very similar to like Avatar, but without the actual bending of the elements. Well, at least for now. One of the house rules that we're going to be doing in this campaign is my fate chip system. So whenever Tila does something cool, or comes up with a creative idea, or has a moment of kind of above and beyond role play, I will hand her a poker chip. This is very similar to an inspiration point in 5th edition, and in fact you can use it just the same. You'll be able to turn this into me after you've rolled the d20, but before I've told you if you succeeded or not. So sometimes it'll be clear, sometimes it won't. Like if you roll a 2, you're like, yeah, I'm going to turn this in. If you roll a 13, not sure if you succeeded or not. Mm-hmm. This will give you advantage on the roll, so you can roll another d20 and take the higher result. These do not roll over session by session, but at the end of the session, if you have any left over, you can turn them in for 50 experience points apiece. Cool. So that will help you kind of level up a little bit more, and will kind of abstractly represent some roleplay XP for you. So other than that, this is going to be standard 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, nothing house ruled, nothing crazy. And I hope you guys enjoy, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start the campaign. All right. So, Thich, you have been gone for more than a century. You actually don't know the exact number of years that you've been gone. It's been so long, and many of those years you've spent in meditation and self-contemplation, trying to come to terms with the direction that your culture has gone in. You're an Eladrin. You are an elf of the Feywild. You are as closely tied with that plane as any creature here on the material plane. But you feel that your people have turned away from that. In the building of constructs, in the implementation of this kind of magitech technology, which is sort of done more out of convenience sake than anything else. It's definitely not necessary that they use this technology. You couldn't reconcile that, and so you decided to strike out on your own. But at some point during your exile, you received a vision, or several visions actually, and these visions sort of grew in severity as the years went on until they kind of reached their zenith very recently. And the visions had to do with your people sort of vanishing from the prime material plane, undergoing great pain and suffering, and their culture sort of being eradicated. And these visions have been haunting you and doing great harm to your overall well-being and your soul. You know, as much as you disagree with your people's current, stances on things, you also don't want the Eladrin to be wiped away, and you don't want to see their culture, which is rich and vibrant to be wiped from the face of the world. Your visions have also included strange symbols that you don't necessarily recognize, and you've started to kind of try and decipher what these symbols might mean. And you kind of have got these symbols kind of written in different places, and you're trying to figure out what they mean. And so far you haven't come up with much, but there's definitely a pattern in these symbols. And you think that, strangely, you feel drawn back home for these symbols too. You feel like maybe there might be answers back on Zhekesh.
What do they look like?
What do they look like?
Do you have them, or can you describe them?
I do have them. I actually forgot to grab them, so I'm going to go run and grab them really quick. So the symbols look like a series of triangles and lines. They're very simple. They remind you of like almost like hieroglyphics. And so there's one that looks like a upright triangle with a line through it. Mm-hmm. There's one that looks like just a plain upright triangle. There's one that looks like an upside down triangle, and one that looks like an upside down triangle with a line through it. And these symbols have kind of been plaguing you. They're very like at the forefront of your mind a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're not sure if these symbols are connected to the visions of your people disappearing or not. It's sort of very muddled in your head, and it's not quite clear yet. We begin our session. You've chartered a small ship back to Zhekesh. You don't have much in the way of gold. You've been living a very meager, very simple life, but at the cost of a few silver, you've chartered a small crayer, which is kind of a coastal vessel. It's not a deep sea vessel at all. It's made for just kind of hopping between islands and stuff like that. And it's so small that it only requires one person to man. It's just, somebody at the back holding the rudder, basically steering this boat around. And the sailor that you have chartered, his name is Rem, and he's an old, stout halfling. He has kind of gray, frizzy hair, and he limps along on this kind of worn wooden peg. He's lost his right leg. And so you've been aboard his crayer for just a couple of hours now, leaving the mainland to return to Zhekesh.
Does his boat have a name?
His boat doesn't have a name.
Oh.
It's so small that it doesn't have a name on it. But if you ask him if it has a name, he'll say that it does have a name, and that he often will call it Isabel.
Nice.
Yeah. And he doesn't say who Isabel is, but he just says, oh yeah, I call it Isabel sometimes. And he's kind of navigating this boat, and you see he's kind of squinting, and like the day is clear. It's a clear kind of cloudless day, but as you approach Zhekesh, and you're getting close, you're kind of getting this feeling like we're getting close to Zhekesh, and you see that there's just this bank of fog just obscuring the entire coastline. And you don't even realize that you are like almost there until you see these things called the prongs, which is basically, it's this big landmass that comes out, and there's two strips, like these two kind of, what would you call them? Like little
peninsulas?
Yeah, like little peninsulas,
Yeah.
kind of stretching out, almost like a jaw,
Mm-hmm.
like coming out. And these are called the prongs, and they kind of encircle it's a bay called the Bay of Balnor, and you're close to Tien because Tien is located on the northern prong on the Bay of Balnor. Mm-hmm. The fog itself is very strange. It's not white like typical fog would be. It's kind of this purple-gray haze. It almost has a shimmering quality to it. And you see Rem kind of squinting as the crayer kind of drifts into this thick, soupy haze. And he kind of starts singing under his breath, and you notice that he's maybe a nervous tick of his as he's steering his boat through the bay.
I say, Rem, tell me, have you sailed into the prongs lately?
No, ma'am. Ain't no one wanting to go through the prongs in the last few years, not since the ruination.
The ruination, I I've been out of town and I'm behind on the news.
I can tell. It's been a few years since I've seen a moon elf in these parts, I'll tell you that much. And moon elves are what some of the common people call Eladrin here,
Right,
because
right.
you have kind of pallid kind of
Yeah.
skin. And he says, the ruination happened, I'd say 5 or 6 years ago now. Wiped most of the Eladrin off of Zhekesh. I'm sure that you've heard that by and large your people are gone.
I hadn't heard officially, but I had some suspicion.
They vanished. The ruination, most people think it was the Warforged that did it. And, well, it's left behind this haze, they call it the miasma. And from what I've told, you should tread lightly because it might be harmful to Eladrin. And as he's saying this, you do kind of notice that this stuff is kind of stinging your eyes and your nose is kind of running and you feel like your throat is getting a little dry. It's kind of very similar symptoms to like really serious like seasonal allergies almost.
Yeah.
Like it's not, you don't feel like you're sick, you just
Mhm.
feel uncomfortable
Mhm.
breathing this stuff in, and you can almost, like it has a moist quality to it. You can kind of feel
Right.
it in your throat and in your nose. It's not pleasant.
I want to like tear part of my blanket off and wrap it around my face.
Wrap it around your
a
face.
little bit.
You actually have, the way your cloak is,
Uh-huh.
you can actually just kind of tug the hem of your
perfect.
cloak.
Yeah, I
up
just
over.
I want to cover up my
Yeah, and as you
my
do that,
breathing parts.
yeah, it definitely helps, and you can you have kind of this ratty cloak. It's not really nice at all, but
Right.
the coarseness of the fabric is helping it kind of filter at least the moisture of it out.
Yeah.
This kind of stale, moist fog.
And I say to Rem, how are you faring with this? Do you need something to cover your mouth with?
He says, "Well, the miasma, it's not pleasant, but it doesn't affect me like it's affecting you. I think folk are right that the miasma is not good for moon elves."
Man.
He says, "I don't think you should be spending much
Oh,
time."
perfect.
Yeah, see? He says, "I don't think you should be spending much time here in the Silent City. I'll have you know, though, the miasma it's centrally located here. It dissipates off the further you get from the Silent City."
Have you heard anything about a bomb? Do you know the cause of this haze?
No one knows for sure, but it didn't destroy anything. The buildings, well, you'll see here shortly, the buildings are still standing, but they're empty. It's almost like everyone just up and left everything they owned behind.
And the rest of the continent, it's still...
Yeah, as intact as it can be, I suppose. The last 5 years, the Warforged have been extending their reach.
Have they been forging war?
They've been living up to their namesake, that's for sure. They were bred for fighting by the Moon Elves, and that's what they're doing. They're doing what they were bred to do.
I am all too familiar with why they were created.
They've got leaders among them. They call them the Iron Lords. I think there's 4 or 5 of them. Each control a different area of the island. Each have their own armies at their disposal.
Are they occupying the entire island?
Well, they're here and there, but no one else on the island is letting them get far without a fight. Especially the Goliaths, the dwarves, they're fighting back, from what I've heard.
I can imagine. The bird folk, how have they been faring?
Well, they've been staying isolated as much as they can. The Warforged don't seem to have much of an interest in their salty pillars out in the middle of the sea.
Well, I suppose they really couldn't get to them very easily.
No, but well, for now, we'll see what the coming years bring. Zhekesh is not going to be as you left it. You're going to find it a strange and alien place.
as I feared, I'm afraid.
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news for you. I don't like giving people bad news.
So I just sort of let the silence grow between us and maybe do some meditating and try and wrap my head around everything for the duration.
Rem kind of gets the sense that you're kind of trying to focus in a little bit and wrap your head around what he's told you. And so he honors the silence. He kind of hums a little bit under his breath as he navigates. And after a few minutes, you see Tien on the northern prong overlooking the Bay of Balnor. And you see its great spires and towers rising up and kind of coming up out of the fog. And the city, it's kind of this strange experience because it looks much as it did when you left. You know, you recognize some of the buildings. You recognize its skyline as it looms out of the miasma at you. But there's no lights in any of the windows. There's no sound coming from the city. It's, you know, Rem called it the Silent City, and that's exactly what it is. It's a ghost town. And you see that a lot of the plant life has overtaken all of the buildings, like without anyone to kind of control the different gardens and stuff that throughout Tien, they've completely overgrown. And there are dire oaks here, which are a plant of the Feywild. And because Tien is kind of on this sort of planar ley line, there are dire oaks here that have grown up and kind of wrapped their roots and branches all around the buildings. And so it's kind of this strange sort of like building and then giant tree wrapped itself around the building. And so it just looks like, you know, a few years ago, just everyone just left and left the city to kind of just fend for itself.
Teach just sort of like has this little gasp and is, nothing could have prepared me for how eerie this is.
Yeah, it's like, it'd be like coming home after college and just like your house is empty and your parents are gone. Just like,
everything's just exactly as I left it, but so changed at the same time.
Exactly. And again, there's this sort of strange purple haze over everything. And the sunlight is kind of filtering and sort of scattering through this fog, giving it just this really kind of alien sort of look to it. And the wind blowing through these buildings is just kind of hollow through the stones. Isabel, the little wooden crayer, bumps up against this stone dock that is overrun with roots and vines. And Rem kind of throws a rope over the little mooring and wraps it up and limps up onto the dock with his peg leg and then reaches down to help you up onto the dock.
So I take his hand and get up onto the dock and say, Rem, thank you very much for your help, sir. And I'm gonna... Oh, it's the miasma. Oh.
It's perfect that you have a little bit of a cough for this. That's good role playing. Have a fate chip.
Oh my god.
Actually, I'm going to give you a fate chip to start out with, so you have one to start with.
So I let him help me up onto the dock, and I say, Rem, thank you for, risking your ship and your life to bring me out here. There's no way I can repay you. I don't have much, but maybe could I give him some herbs that would help his leg if it hurt?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you. I believe you have an herbalism
I
kit.
do. Yeah.
So yeah, you just kind of know what kind of herbs he could brew in tea to help with the pain.
Mm-hmm. So I want to send him with that, and because
awesome.
I already paid him for his boat.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you did.
So just as a little thank you and.
Cool. Yeah, he takes it.
Safe.
He seems very touched. He says, "Oh, thank you. That it does hurt a bit when it gets cold out. I appreciate that." And he says, "I know how important home is, and I'm sorry that you've found yours changed. I can stick around here for a while if you want me to, but if you're planning on staying, I'm going to head back to the mainland.
I think what has brought me here is going to occupy more than just a day's worth of my time. So I thank you for your offer.
And he nods to you and he says, all right, well, I wish you luck and I hope you find what you're looking for.
I do have one more question for you before you go.
Of course.
Just, have you heard of any Eladrin since this all happened?
I mean, I can't imagine that they're all gone. But if there are any Eladrin on Zhekesh, they're not going to be here in the Silent City.
Well, I'm hoping that they didn't exclude all of the people on this continent before the miasma. Hopefully we still have some friends that I can seek out.
I hope you find some. Like I said, I haven't seen any moon elves in a few years, but that doesn't mean there aren't some here. You're hardy folk. I'm sure you'll find some friends.
Well, foolhardy, but
sometimes that's all you need. He gets back into his little crater and undoes the mooring, and he just kind of lets the boat kind of drift away on the current. And he looks back and just kind of gives you a wave, and you hear his voice as he starts singing, and it just kind of fades off and kind of goes silent as you see the boat just disappear, kind of swallowed up by the purple-gray haze of the miasma. And the city lays silent before you, kind of a just hollow, ghostly husk of what it once was. And as you're standing there, you kind of hear like some rocks kind of break loose from one of the buildings settling, and it just echoes hollowly throughout the whole city. While you're standing here breathing in the miasma, I need you to make a DC 10 fortitude saving throw, please.
Nope. I rolled 6 plus 0.
You have no fortitude save? Okay, so you are... Unfortunately, the miasma is affecting you more than you would have thought. And for 3 hours, you're going to be poisoned. Which means that you have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks for 3 hours. So as you're sitting there breathing this crap in, you kind of double over, and you've like your throat kind of closes up for a bit, and you start coughing, and you look and you see that there's a little bit of blood on your hand where you're coughing, and you think, if whatever I need to get done here, I need to get it done quick.
Yeah.
Because it's affecting you.
Whatever I need to get done here. I need to do it quick.
If you would like to try and use like your herbalist kit or something like that to try and come up with something to help with the poison, you could try.
Yeah, I actually want to do something like you would do with an essential oil, putting it on the cloth covering my face.
Okay, yeah.
So the equivalent of doing like some eucalyptus and tea tree oil.
Yeah, awesome.
On my little thing.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So you have the herbalism kit. Mm-hmm. So what you can do with the herbalism
Look down,
kit,
I'm just covered in cat hair.
Well, that's just our life. So with the herbalism kit, let me just check this really quick while I have the book in front of me, because I'm interested in knowing what all you can do with it, actually. So, okay, yeah. Oh. You can actually make potions of healing with an herbalism kit.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
Yeah. So what you can do is go ahead and give me just a wisdom check plus your proficiency, since you're using the herbalism kit.
Okay. Ooh, 20.
20? Yeah. You very quickly just kind of unfurl your herbalism kit and you're just like, okay, scanning the bottles and the little bags and stuff like that. And you just kind of throw something together that helps, if you get allergies or colds, it helps soothe your throat, helps you open kind of the passages, helps you breathe easier.
Yeah.
And you do that and basically negate the poison for the next 3 hours. And so you're able to do that, at least until you make another check.
Okay. How often do I need to make a check?
While you're in the miasma, you're going to be making checks every hour while you're here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm just going to put poison check. Oh my gosh.
Poinson?
Poinson.
Poinson check.
Poison check 1 per hour.
Oh, I like that. I was like, poison V. And then I was like, check mark. Poison check. I like it. Very nice. So yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. So I think my first destination is going to be where I could find records.
Okay.
I want to go get some scrolls, get some information, and then get out of town.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So the place where you would go to do that is a building called the Fane.
Okay.
And the Fane is the spiritual hub of the city. And
so probably where I lived before?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
It's the spiritual hub of the city, and it kind of serves as like the main government building too, actually.
Okay.
What it is it's people, the Moon Elves, the Eladrin, believe that the Fane is built on like the exact like convergence line of the Feywild and the Prime Material Plane.
Okay.
Like they believe that this is where we walked into the Prime Material Plane like thousands of years ago. This is where we walked into it, and people would come to the Fane and pay their respects to their ancestors, and they would meditate for hours or even days at a time to try and rekindle their connection with the Feywild. When you left, that was one of the main things that was kind of setting you off, was like, people are not coming to the Fane anymore. Like, people don't meditate and try to connect themselves with the Feywild.
Right, okay.
They don't want to walk among the wilds anymore like they used to. And so, yeah, this is definitely like, it's the central building in the city, and if there were going to be records, that's where you would want to go.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you want to start heading in that direction?
I do.
Cool. You just kind of follow your feet, and you kind of are unconsciously going there. You've walked this path so many times before. You've walked these streets so many times before.
And like, I really am just walking there casually. I'm just kind of assuming that this place is abandoned.
Yeah, I mean, it's from what you see it's completely abandoned.
Because how well is the lighting?
It's dim. Like the because of the fog sort of scattering the light that's shining down. You can see just fine. Your dark vision isn't kicking in.
Okay.
But the fog is obscuring your vision.
Okay.
So it's like, it's not dark enough for your dark vision to be on, so you don't have that kind of infravision kind of thing.
Right.
But it is kind of, you can't see more than, 10, 15 feet in front of you because of the miasma.
Okay.
And you do, as you're walking, you do see that there are signs. What's your passive perception, by the way?
14.
14. That's really good. With that passive perception, you definitely notice signs of looting.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like anyone is squatting here, but you see that there are doors kind of hanging out their hinges. A lot of the buildings that you pass by, if you kind of look in the windows, you see that a lot of like drawers have been thrown open, like stuff has been taken out of there. A lot of the valuable stuff has been taken from this place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes me a little, like, pay a little more attention.
Makes you a little nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm mostly going to be kind of listening for movements. And activity, because I can't really see anything anyways.
Yeah, and because it is so quiet and echoey in here, you feel pretty confident that if someone or something moved here, you would hear it from like a mile away.
Yeah.
Like even as you're walking, even though you're pretty light, you're pretty light on your feet.
Yeah.
And you're not wearing anything heavy, your footsteps are kind of echoing through the streets.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So you move through the city. You pass through the Great Market, and its stalls are empty, pillaged of their goods, and you like think back and you remember this used to be such a bustling, joyous place with voices kind of raised and crowds milling around looking at different wares and goods, things that from all over Zhekesh, people from all over Zhekesh would come to hawk their wares here, and you can almost smell like the spiced wine on the air and stuff that used to be brewed here, and the different food and stuff like that, but now it's kind of cold and silent, and there's nothing left of what it used to be. And you keep moving, and you pass through the Artificers District, where they used to make the Warforged and the constructs that would serve the Eladrin, but the forges are long cold, and there's nothing really left of those great craftsmen that used to work day and night to create the Warforged. And after a while, you finally come to the Fane, and it's, if not the largest, one of the largest structures in Tien. It's rising up out of the street, and it has kind of one central tower and then 4 towers kind of on each corner, pointing in every direction of Zhekesh. And that central tower is the convergence line, or believed to be the convergence line. The heavy stone doors are kind of lilting open in front of you at the top of a staircase leading up into it.
Before I go in,
Yeah.
Has the fog changed density at all? Or
Not really.
No?
It seems pretty consistent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering if it was getting thicker as I was going into town or not. But
yeah, it definitely is getting a little bit thicker as you get towards the center of town, but not by any amount that it's like getting harder to see or more difficult to breathe.
Okay.
But
Cool.
it definitely seems like what Rem told you was correct. Like, it's definitely centrally located here.
Yeah.
So the farther you get away from the center of the city, the more it's going to dissipate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'm going in, and I just want to. I want to find, because I've been gone a long time.
Yeah.
So I could even find some history books that would talk about what I had missed.
Yeah, because you've been gone for over a century. Yeah.
So I just want to try and get some general information of what was happening with the people living not only in Tien, but on the continent in general.
Okay, yeah.
I want to get some information on the progression of the constructs. And like anything that is like updated spiritually for Tien.
Okay, yeah.
Because I was off in a temple,
right?
But that was a long ways away, and it's like really like like an Orthodox temple too.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, you can like come up with more on this on your own if you want, but I imagine that it wasn't just an Eladrin temple. Like, you were probably one of the few elves there at this kind of monastery that you were staying at. So, so yeah, if you go ahead and head inside the main entrance doors, the doors are so big that you kind of just like slip through the kind of like open crack between them. You don't even need to like kind of push them open. You just slip between them. And the main chamber of the Fane kind of stretches out before you, and you see that it's definitely been emptied of its valuables. A lot of the old like relics and stuff that were on display here in the Fane are gone. There were things here that were objects from the Feywild, great weapons and items of your ancestors and things like that. They've all been taken.
Okay.
This place has definitely been looted 1,000 times over of its valuables, and unfortunately there's not much left.
Do I see any evidence of who may have looted?
That is a good question. You can give me an investigation roll if you want to look a little closer.
16.
16? So, in the kind of dust and grime on the ground, probably the most recent or the only like identifiable footprints are large booted footprints, a little bit larger than a human boot print. And they're pretty like in the dust, something heavy walking around.
So, would that be the Goliaths?
The Goliaths? Not necessarily.
That doesn't really make sense for them.
No, the Goliaths tend to keep to themselves.
Right.
They probably wouldn't have like descended like vultures on Tien. They would have like holed up themselves.
Yeah. So wait, are dwarves' feet bigger than human feet?
Dwarves' feet are bigger than human feet.
Oh, okay.
But what you immediately think, just based on what you know about the cultures of Zhekesh, you think orc.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Like these are big combat boots.
Yeah. Okay.
And kind of the unnecessary destruction, like there's no one in the city and they're kicking down doors.
Yeah.
Orc is what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And when you left, orcs were like savages in the woods and stuff. Like they were like, they barely put up a threat. Like they were loose collective clans that would fight amongst themselves more than they would actually go out and fight other people.
Okay.
So they weren't a huge concern.
Okay.
Also, while you're looking, you do find a few things kind of hidden away in the rubble and stuff. You find something kind of catches your eye. You find a gold bracelet that is etched with Sylvan writing, which Sylvan is the language of the Fae. And near one of the altars, you also find kind of, it looked like it fell off and rolled under the altar. You find a copper chalice. And as you pick it up, you smell Fey wine. And you haven't had Fey wine in years, and you catch a whiff of it. Like, Fey wine was the last thing that was in this copper chalice before the ruination happened. And you kind of get this just faint whiff of that kind of spicy, sweet Fey wine that you haven't had in so long.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It kind of brings you back, and you remember the warmth and the light of this place in its prime, when people would come and meditate and walk in the Feywild, even though they were living here on the prime material plane.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So there isn't actually any liquid in it, though.
No liquid. You just kind of, it's almost like a wine.
I can dream.
You can sit there, I imagine, like, you just, like, lower your thing, just like...
Yeah. So I'm putting both of those things in my pack.
You got them.
I actually want to, like, I'll find a rag or something and wrap that chalice up.
The chalice,
I'm going to try and preserve that smell.
That smell,
yeah,
absolutely. And, I mean, Fey wine is pretty strong, so you imagine, like, I can keep sniffing on this for a while. Yeah. This will keep me going. It's like a wine cork. Like, it's just like, it smells good. And the gold bracelet is a pretty nice looking bracelet too. It's definitely a little bit gaudier than you would want to wear. But seeing the Sylvan writing is definitely
then Teak would want to wear.
Teak would want to wear. By the way, as you're kind of rummaging through this stuff, you kind of notice on your shoulder a clump of hair, a white hair, and you pick it up and you realize that a clump of your hair has kind of fallen out and fallen on your shoulder.
Oh. Well, that's great. I'm going to go ahead and pull my hood up. I have
you have your hood. Yeah. You pull your hood up, and as you're doing that, you hear a sound that is kind of familiar to you, and it's the sound of a bowstring being pulled back. And as you hear this, before you can react, you hear a voice say, "All right, that's close enough."